wonderful to be here. I've gone through some kind of time warp into your time period. I actually came from what you might call the Dark Ages. It wasn't called the Dark Ages, we call them the Dark Ages now. But I kind of call them the Stupid Ages, because for a long time we gave up using intelligence, and we did a lot of battling, and we did a lot of crusades. And what happened is that kings owned land, and they had people that worked under them, and they had other people worked under them, until everybody was trying to fight for a king's title. So they wanted to create a force, and they created the knights to protect them. And the knights needed their people to protect them, so they would be in charge of a small land. And then they would get squires to help them, so that when knights got old, the squires could come forward and become knights themselves. Well, I'm going to take you a little bit through history, because my name is Sir Tom of Warwick. Now, you wonder who Sir Tom of Warwick is. Sir Tom was the last man knighted by King Arthur himself, and that would be me. See, King Arthur was getting into a great battle, and I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight because I had heard of King Arthur. I had heard of the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and fight for right. Not fight for might, but fight for right. King Arthur was sad because he knew it was ending his final days. And he said, "Boy, come forward. What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to fight for you." He said, "Well, what do you know about me?" I said, "I know everything." And he was so proud that he said, "Tom, I do not want you to fight today. I want you to run behind the lines. I want you to run far away to the villages. And for the rest of your life, tell the people far and wide how King Arthur lived for peace and that we did fight for right. Tell them everything that you ever knew about King Arthur and make me proud." And here I am as a grown man, Sir Tom of Warwick. He sat me down, he knighted me with his sword, Excalibur, and I became the last man knighted. And I'm here with you today to tell you a little bit about the Dark Ages and a little bit about King Arthur. Now you wonder, how is it possible that we know so much information when they didn't have what you have today, these TV screens and radios and all of these things? Well, people didn't even read or write back then, but people could sing, and they loved to sing, and they would remember all the stories, and they were called minstrels, and they would go from town to town, and they would sing a story, and they would get paid a little bit of money for singing that story, and that would pass on history as we know it today. Now, if you see my suit of armor here, it might remind you of a little show where there was a little scarecrow and some little girl and like a lion and someone that kind of looked like me, a Tin Man. Well, this is fully made of metal, and I want to show you a song that a minstrel would sing, and that would tell you all about knighthood. And to do that, I'm going to take off my little helmet here, make it a little easier. Maybe you can hear me a little better. And I'd like to try to sing you a song, and this is going to be like a quiz, because when I'm done, you'll know a lot about what it's like to be a knight. And let's see if I can remember the words. You listen to them carefully and see how much you learn. When I wasn't that much higher, I trained to be a squire at 7 or 8 years old. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It took 14 years of training, lots of work without complaining. Now I'm a knight that's brave and bold. Look at me, nobility. I learned honor and charm and chivalry. I protect the castle, the king and queen, the bravest knight you've ever seen. I'm the queen's knight in shining armor. With me no one can harm her. That's how the legend's told. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Now hear of the Middle Ages that took place in your history pages starting 800 years ago. Now, that could be like a minstrel song. You can learn all about knighthood because when did I start? By being a squire? 7 or 8 years old. How long did it take me? 14 years. And when did the time of the Knights and the Dark Ages start? About 800 years ago. Well, King Arthur was the man who knighted me. And many of you probably heard of how King Arthur became King Arthur. Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful story, but it all has to do with this little sword that stuck in a stone because his brother was a great knight and Arthur was only a little tiny squire, his brother. And he was off to the festival to compete and see who could pull the sword out of the stone and be rightful king of England because there was no king at the time. Well, wouldn't you know it, his brother said, "Go back and get me my sword." And Arthur went back, and as he went back, he saw somebody running away with the sword, faster than he could catch them. His brother couldn't compete. There was no way. He didn't have a sword. And Arthur was so sad. So he's walking through the woods. How am I going to tell my brother I lost his sword? And he came across a sword in the stone, not knowing what it was, not knowing that that was the sword that everybody was competing for. So he said, "Here is a sword I found in the stone. Oh my goodness." So he said, "I could get this for my brother." And he went to pull, and then magically, Excalibur slid out of the stone. And he would become rightful king of England. All of a sudden, everybody says, "The boy has pulled the sword out of the stone." I said, "No, I didn't. No way. Hey, put it back." I didn't want to be responsible for pulling the sword out of the stone. They said it has to be magic. Something had to happen. Well, all the knights, they went up to that sword, and they pulled, with all of their might, and they couldn't get it out. So they said, "Let the boy try again." And Arthur came scared because he knew it was a mistake the first time, and grabbed the sword, and slowly but surely pulled the sword back out again. And all the knights bowed and said, "Long live King Arthur, the rightful knight and the rightful king of England." So that's how King Arthur got his start. Well, I'm going to actually walk you through history. I give you a little taste of the Dark Ages. Well, I couldn't possibly put this sword on all myself. There is no way I could do that. I have my own Merlin sword that I could fight with, which is really cool. But there's no way a knight would fight with one sword and one weapon only. So I have my mace, and I could do some real serious damage with a mace. So I have a lot of weapons that I could fight with. But there was no way I'm going to carry around all this stuff myself. So I had a squire, Squire Lance. Now you're going to see Squire Lance come on and help me throughout this time period because a lot of this stuff would be very, very difficult for a knight to take on. So I'm going to take off what I can here. My gauntlets, my gloves. Squire Lance, you're going to see there's all kind of buckles. Here we go. Thank you so much. If you could quickly buckle those. There we go. A squire would start as a page when he was very, very young. And, well, that'd be good enough for that. And then, if he was a good page, I would make him my squire. He would polish my armor. He would make sure my swords are sharp. He would do everything that a knight would want to do when he was old enough to become one. Thank you. And this is called the breastplate. Okay, if you could grab that, Squire Lance. Oh, hold on one sec. Gotta get the weapons out of the way. There we go. You should know better than that. Never blame the knight. Okay, now grab that. Okay. Now, as you can see, I have legs. The legs will come off quick. I will take off my coif, which is a coat of mail, which every good knight would wear underneath his armor. There we go. Okay, thank you. And one more here. There we go. Now, I'm down to just my coat of mail. This would protect me in case somebody wanted to hit me with a sword. I could be very, very protected. It won't cut me. I could still bruise badly, But that's because when the weapons got bigger, we created armor. Well, my friends, that's a little snippet of the medieval times. Now, what I want to do is to be able to take you through history, not only in the Dark Ages, not only when we were King Arthur, not only when we were Sir Lance, or the Knights of the Round Table, or the Dark Ages. It was a wonderful time period, but it was what we do call the Dark Ages, where people were kept stupid and people were kept down. That was not a good time period to live. Yes, it had its nobility, and yes, it had its wonderful, legends of all the different knights. But certainly times could be much better than that. And that's why I'd like to take you further into time, forward into time. And because this is live television, I'm going to do something I've never done before, and basically change into my other characters almost before your eyes in the best way I can. So, with the help of Lance, we will take this off. Okay, we will move this forward. We'll do this quick.
Yeah.
Wow, wasn't that interesting? We're going from the Dark Ages into the Light Ages. And we're going to introduce Sir Tom of Warwick as Sir Leonardo da Vinci. But what I especially like about the Dark Ages, and I'm kind of surprised that they did a lot of singing. Everywhere they went, they put song and they just galloped through the streets and just sang. I mean, that's my favorite part of it. I'm sure you have a favorite part too. And while we're waiting for Sir Tom of Warwick to turn into Leonardo da Vinci, he's amazing, isn't he? I never knew the story about the sword and the stone, how Arthur pulled it out and he was able to become the king, King Arthur. Did you know about that? He was amazing. Well, I think we're almost set here. Oh my goodness, we're almost ready. I hope you guys are ready. Oh, there he is.
Hey, buonasera, buonasera. My name is Leonardo da Vinci. And, it's a wonderful to be here in my time period. My time period was a great time period. We call it the Renaissance. And they called me the ultimate Renaissance man. Oh, it was a great time. And I want to tell you, Leonardo da Vinci, as a Leonardo da Vinci, it was, let me tell you, people thought a little differently back then. Again, we didn't have what you have today. We don't have the electronics, and I wonder if I lived today what I could do with the wonders that you have. Almost like a magic. I look at the people that are helping me here today, and it is way beyond my own thought process. But, as a Leonardo da Vinci, what I would like to show you is that you can use your mind. You can do something that nobody else has ever done before. And that's what Leonardo was great for. I love life. I love everything. One time, I'm playing out in the backyard, and I see a wonderful, wonderful thing from a tree to the tree. The little birds are flying. And I would see the birds, how they fly, and they would flap their wings. Oh, it was so great. It was a wonderful time. So I would watch these birds fly. Oh, I would watch these birds fly. And I would study their wings. Oh, look at this, watch this. Oh, the bird will fly away. Here to come the bird, come back to me. Oh, I love to have the bird. And I study their wings. And I learned that they don't go flapping like this. They go like this. They push the wind behind their wings. Oh, it was a wonderful time to study. So I would draw how the birds work. And I would feel about, go like this, and you can feel the wind between your fingers. And I know that they would push the wind behind them and they would fly. So I figured someday I could make an invention that would make a man fly. And it was so good. So I took a little thing called, what you might have called like a flying a bird. Maybe today you might even call it an airplane. But I used it so if you were lying down and you could pedal, you would make your wings flap and you could fly like a bird. Oh, I think of something else. Because I see a screw. When the screw goes through water, it pushes things. What if I make a giant screw and the two people can run around and it will screw up in the air, just like you see behind me. That's called an onatata. And it would screw it through the air and maybe people could fly. Well, I would think about these things, and unfortunately it did not fly. It really succeeded in making two people very dizzy. But that's okay. I took something that was a nothing and made it something. Look at this. What do you see here? You might see a tube, and only a tube. But that's not what it is. When I look at it, if I put it like, I could make it like a screw, and if I make it go through water, I can have the water go from one side of a room all the way to the other, and I could transfer water power. Or what if I put it under the water and I breathe? Oh, now I have a snorkel. Well, if I take a bigger conch shell and I put it on the top of this, I can go underwater, and it will be like a scuba tank. Oh my goodness, now all of a sudden, in my time period, way, way back, we have the airplane, we have the helicopter, we have the scuba tank. Well, I love doing things with air. So I started thinking, wow, we take a bigger building in Italy. And what if somebody was trying to use my airplane or my helicopter, and they were to fall a long distance? They would get hurt when they hit the ground. So I decided that I would sew a bunch of sheets together. And I would make it like a pyramid, and I would make it according to the width and the length of the man hanging down. And now he could have jumped or he could have fallen over the sky, and this would have catch the air, and he could have float down to safety. I think it would have worked. Well, sure enough, it did work. And look at what you have today. Somebody handed me this when I was coming in, and they said they call it the parachute. The parachute is a wonderful thing. Ladies and gentlemen, as a Leonardo da Vinci, the most important thing that you can ever do is to use your mind. To take something that's a nothing and turn it into something. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing to use your brain. And as a Leonardo da Vinci, I created, unfortunately, because of battle, we were getting into war so many, many times, I invented a thing called a tank, where we could put a Gatling gun on the front of the tank and cover the person. And we had a tank. We had a scuba tank. And because of the snorkel, I invented something that you call today the submarine.
Yep.
Oh, and maybe I couldn't cut my sheets too well with the knives I had. But it was easy, so I come up with an invention called scissors. Oh, they were wonderful things. You might see here just a wheel, a nothing, just a wheel. Well, if we put the holes in it, and we put the sticks in it, and we do another one, we can have gears. And we can move things from one thing to another. I love doing things. I learned to paint because of my father taking me to a Verrocchio when I was very, very young. And he would teach me how to paint. And I painted a few things. Maybe this is one of the things that you didn't see when you were somewhere along the line. Some people call it the most famous painting in the world, the Mona Lisa. It is now hanging in the Louvre in Paris, France. And they have it to keep it with me all these years. But even though Leonardo da Vinci is known as a painter, I didn't do more than 30 paintings in my lifetime. You might have heard of some, The Last Supper. And I have one around here with my little self-portrait of when I got a little older. Maybe Squire Lance, who's still hanging around and can find it. That's not a problem. Oh, here it is. He had it here the whole time. Doesn't that look like me? At least when I get a little older. I keep a little record of myself because we don't have a photograph back then. I don't want you to forget what I look like. And then I went into sculpting. There's a man that used to compete against me. His name, you might even remember, Michelangelo. He did a few nice things, but I don't like to talk about him too much. But I made a giant horse. A giant horse, is 30 feet tall. And it was a wonderful, and I was getting ready to cast it in a bronze. But then another army came into Italy and they used it as target practice. And they destroyed it. And now it no longer exists. But as of a few years ago, they actually, I heard, in a Smithsonian Institute, that they have recreated it over in Italy. So you can see a lot of what Leonardo did if you go back to Italy. It was a great day to live. Oh, it was a wonderful time. It was a time when we took the Darker Ages. You heard of something called the Sir Thomas of Warwick, when he was a knight in a shining armor. And they thought it was a glorious days. But you don't try to keep people stupid. You don't try to keep people down. That's not a good thing to do. We're all meant to be as smart as we possibly can be. And I was fortunate enough to have a papa who would allow me to use my brain. And along the way, everybody would recognize Leonardo for the greater things he did. All the wonderful inventions, all the sketches. Oh, lots of sketches with the anatomy and a little bit of astronomy and a lot of engineering and inventing my parachutes and my paintings and my Last Supper. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes they call me the master of them all. And I feel that you can be better than Leonardo. In your day and age, with everything that you know and with the schools and everything at your hand, you can do a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. And that is a little bit about the Renaissance time with the master Leonardo da Vinci. I have to do a lot of talking in a little bit of time to be able to give you just a little snippet of a Leonardo. But on another day, on another time, maybe I can come back to you and do a whole show with all of my inventions and get you all involved. Well, I'm going to step away just for about 1 minute or maybe 2, maybe less, and I'm going to come back and you will see something even just as wonderful as a Leonardo da Vinci. Thank you very much. Oh, I have a friend. Lance, are you coming back? Or Jojo, are you coming back?
If you'd like me to.
Oh, I would like you to come back. This is my friend Jojo from Jojo's Dream Cart. She's an amazing lady.
Oh my goodness, we're back again. Wasn't that great? Leonardo da Vinci. All the things that he invented. I had no idea. I mean, he's just so brilliant. Did you know too that he was into, I believe, the anatomy? He was really fascinated by the human body, and that's how he invented, if I'm correct, the helicopter. Because he used to observe birds flying. And he could tell by the way the birds flap their wings is the way he tried to put together the first plane. Of course, he didn't really, it never got off the ground. Let's face it, the Wright brothers did it, but Leonardo da Vinci did all the sketches. He had the sketches for the helicopter, and he just kept going on from one thing to another. Brilliant guy. I love that guy. I bet you have some great things that you want to tell us about Leonardo too. And oh, he's Italian, which is very cool because I'm Italian. And I love Italian men. They're just awesome. They really have imaginations. And you know, they use their hands a lot. So that's why he was really artistic. He would draw, he would paint. And there's this great painting that he did. And if we could zoom into that wonderful painting, no, I guess we can't. It's already off the camera. But he did this beautiful picture of Christ that was just great. And if you're into Christ, I mean, Christ was a great man. And he painted a lot of religious things. He was spiritual. In those days, they were very close to the spiritual stuff, as we're trying to all get back into now in this new millennium. So I think we're going to be sharing with you Galileo. And Galileo is also from Italy. And Paul Manning loves to play a lot of characters from Italy. He probably was an Italian man in his past life. And he's fantastic as Galileo. Galileo, as you well know, was into astronomy and the Galilean moons and the Jupiter. He was into drawing too. So anyways, I think we're going to bring him on. And Paul, are we ready to bring on Galileo?
Absolutely.
Oh, here he is. See ya.
Hello, once again, Buenos Aires. How are you doing tonight? Oh, things are moving along just wonderfully. Oh, you met my friend, Leonardo da Vinci, a gentleman that lives in what they call the Renaissance time period. It was a great time period and a wonderful time to live. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Galileo Galilei. Oh, and I'm not like a Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci did everything. Oh, like a Jojo say, he did the helicopter, the submarine, oh, the Gatling gun, the scuba diving, all those are wonderful things. Not to so with Galileo, but that doesn't mean you can't be a great person. Well, and I'll tell you something. I was born in a city that looks like this. It has a building that leans at an angle. And do you know what that building is called? That leans against the angle in Italy? That is called the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And why, we will talk about that in a little while. Because I have a lot of time to talk, because there's so many things as a Galileo that I did that was a wonderful time. Let's see. My papa, oh, he loved me. And when you grow up, you are supposed to take over the family business. And my father, he was a musician. And he played a musica, and he played a lute, and he had a wonderful time playing the lute. But he was also a mathematician, and like I say, he liked numbers. And one time he was getting bored of playing the lute, and it was very boring for him. So he had decided, I must do something else. And at one time he was looking at a string, and it was very thin, and he plucked it, and it goes bing, bing, bing. So he used a little math and grabbed a thicker string, and it goes bing, bing, bing. And he put a bunch of strings in between, and it had a bing, 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 bing. And he invented something that you might call a guitar. And that made him a good amount of money. And he said, oh, now I'm like not a little famous, but everybody know my name. So I say, oh, I want to grow up and I want to be just like a papa. And I take over the family business. And Papa say, what do you want to be? I say, I want to be a mathematician. I want to grow up just like you, Papa. I want to be a mathematician. And he say, no, you can't be a mathematician. I say, why? I want to be just like you. He said, because mathematicians don't make enough money. I say, oh, but what about the money? I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be just like you, Papa. He say, no, you go and you study medicine. I said, but I like math. He said, no, you study medicine, be a doctor, you make more money. So back in that day, what Papa say is what you do. So I went to school and became a mathematician. And I studied, medicine. I don't like medicine, but I study it because Papa will say. Well, believe it or not, Papa gave me enough money so that while I was in the school, I could hire what you call a tutor. And the tutor would teach me math. And I like that much more than studying medicine. So one day I'm learning math, and I'm learning math, and I'm learning math. And every Sunday we went to church. We had to go to church. Every Sunday you went to church. And the biggest person in the whole world back then was the Pope. And the Pope he was in charge of everything. And it was wonderful to listen to all the fathers and the priests talking about the Pope. Well, I'm sitting in a church one day, and I'm getting a little bored. I'm not exactly having a good time, so I'm sitting in a pew, and I start to fall asleep. And I kind of look up, and when I look up, I see the chandelier. It's rocking back and forth, and back and forth. And I say, how'd I do that? There's not a lot of wind. There's no wind. The doors are shut. And nobody's pushing it. It's up too high. So I went back into my little laboratory, and I take a little chain, just like the chandelier had, and I put a little bit of weight on it, and I push it. And there it is, rocking back and forth, just like the chandelier. And I said, whoa, I wonder what is going on here. Why does it keep going back and forth? And I said, maybe I can make it go faster if I add more weight. So I put more weight on it, and I let it go, and it still goes 1, 1, 1, 1. I add more weight, and I push it, goes 1, 1, 1, 1. It doesn't do anything, any different. So I said, maybe it's not about the weight. Maybe it's about the length. So now I put it on a little shorter chain, And now it goes a 1, a 1, a 1, a 1. It goes a lot quicker. And I started thinking, what is this good for? Galileo, what are you doing here? What are you creating here? I don't know. But I know with a different change and a different weights. Oh, and then it hits me. Back in my time period, we didn't have a clock like you have today. Everybody have a clock to say a different time. You know, some people arrive late, some people arrive early, but it make no difference because nobody had to write a clock. Well, you must have seen something at your grandmother's house or your grandfather's house, or maybe even one in your own home. A bigger clock with a big metal thing inside that rocks a back and a forth and a back and a forth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I, through the discovery of mathematics and motion, created what's called a pendulum. And everybody buy my pendulum. And everybody get excited by buying my pendulum. And sooner or later, they add it to the clock. And now everybody, whether you have a grandfather clock with a bigger pendulum that goes tick-a-tock, tick-a-tock, or a little cuckoo clock that goes ticky-tocky, ticky-tocky, ticky-tocky. No matter what you do, it doesn't make a difference because all the clocks say the right time. Oh, everybody's so happy. I'm so happy. I'm making money selling my pendulum. I'm so excited. Oh, so Galileo become a famous. I go to Papa. Hey, I'm a famous Papa. I'm so excited. He said, are you studying medicine? I said, no, I like mathematics. He said, okay, you make us some money. That's okay. So I make us some money, and guess what? Well, everybody make it Leonardo famous, but you know, in Pisa, everybody think straight and forward. They don't use a creative mind. So I need to go someplace else. So I decide I'm going to leave Pisa, and I go to a place called a Padua. And a Padua is kind of like a you're San Francisco. You can do what you want. You can dress it like this, and nobody makes fun of you. Okay? So I go to Padua, and I'm having a good time. And while I'm in Padua, I make a longer story short. There's other inventions I'll get back to, but I got to tell you about this because it's so exciting. Okay? Okay. So I'm in Padua, and while I'm in Padua, I hear about this a wonderful guy way over the Netherlands. His name is Hans Lippershey. And he invented something that they call a spyglass. And you say, what is a spyglass? Well, this spyglass was, I give you a little modern one. It looks like this. And when you look through it, you can see things 3 times closer. I go, that's amazing. 3 times closer. I don't know what the application of it is yet, but I think this is a wonderful thing. So I say, Mr. Hans Lippershey, could you send me the directions how to make your spyglass? So he sends him my directions. And you take a lens, a bigger rounded lens, piece of glass, and it's a shape of kind of cave around it like this. And you put it in a tube. And then you take a little piece of glass and you grind it until it's a little kind of X, and it's going in like this. And you put it in the other side of the tube. And when you put it in a tube, and you look through it, because I had a little more money than Hans Lippershey, and because of my glass was a little better, I do my own little spyglass. And I look through my spyglass, everything's 9 times closer. Forget about the 3 times closer. It's 9 times closer. I could look right at you, and it looked like I could see it right up your nose almost. It's so exciting. So I say, what is this good for? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I take it over to the coastline where the forts are. Because, again, we're in the darker age. We're just out of the dark ages into the age of enlightenment, but people still are trying to fight and fight and fight. So I'm there thinking, I take it over to the fort, and I look over way out in the Mediterranean Sea. And I take my spyglass, and I look out in the sea, because I don't see nothing, right? Just the water. And I look out, and I go, it's a ship! I see a ship! No ship! Ship! No ship! Ship! No ship. No, I don't see it in the spyglass. You're going to see it so much closer. It's a wonderful. So I go and I get the Pope, and I get the Medicis, and I get my friends and the bishops and everything. I say, come to the sea. You got to see my spyglass. Look at what it can do for you. And they get excited. They say, it cannot do nothing. I say, look. I say, you see the ship? They say, no, there's no ship there. I said, there's a ship out there. They say, you're nuts. I say, no, look at my spyglass. And they look at my spyglass, and they go, it's a ship. I say, no ship. ship. They look. They say, there's no ship in there. You can't find a ship. I say, see, you can see it closer. Now they think that's a wonderful. And I get a better tube, and I get a better glass, and I get a better concave glass, and I put it in and make a better spyglass. And now you can see the ship way out there. And because of my little pendulum, and we have a ticky-ticky in the watch, I say, look, that ship will be here in about 2 hours. They say, you're nuts. I say, no, look. And they look. And sure enough, in about 2 hours, the ship arrives. Oh, they say, Galileo, that's phenomenal. Now we can put the cannonballs in the cannon, and we can prepare because we know the ships are coming. And when they get close, we can blow them out of the water before they even get close to the thing because we know they're coming. Oh, that's going to be the greatest weapon of all time. So everybody buy my spyglass. Everybody make a Galileo very, very rich. Forget all about a Hansel Lippershey. Everybody say, I invented the spyglass. I didn't invent it, but I made it better, and I got all the money, and nobody remembers Hansel Lippershey. Oh, well. Anyways, so I have my spyglass. And I take my spyglass. Well, I get tired of fighting the wars and helping with the engineering and the battles and the things like that. So I say to myself, it's a time to move on. So I take my spyglass with me because I love my spyglass, making me a lot of money. Okay? And I take it and I go away from the coastline. Well, in Padua, oh, they have a great cannolis and they have a great pastries and I eat a lot. Oh, that's how I get the way that I am. And one night, maybe I had a bite of cheese. I'm not sure, but I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't sleep, so I said, oh, what am I going to do? So I decided I'm going to go outside. And I take my spyglass with me. And I don't know why. You can't just see a ship in the nighttime. No way. But I take my spyglass and I look. And I see what do you call that big white thing that comes up at the nighttime? The thing that Aristotle said is a nice and a smooth. You call it the moon. And I look up and I spy. And for the first time in the history, ladies and gentlemen, I look up. Whoa! It's not like anything I ever seen before. It's not smooth. It's a bumpery. It's got it looks like it has craters on it. It looks like it has darker seas in it. And it's a wonderful thing. So I get to see the moon for the first time like anybody on the planet Earth, like no one has ever seen it before. And I'm so excited, folks, and I take my notes, and I write all the wonderful things about the moon. And I say, oh, there's all these little dots in the sky. You call them stars. And I look at the stars. And night after night, I look, and all the stars, they're all over the place. Well, I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden, oh! There's a star, a bigger star. And right next to the bigger star is 4 little stars, right in a row. I can't believe it, right in a row. Where stars are everywhere, there's a 1, 2, 3. Oh, let me show you something. Let me get my thermometer out of the way. Sorry, folks, coming back. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, the guy with the little funny thing over there, if he can look at these wonderful things. Let me get this out of the way. Get this out of the way. Okay. We have a 1, 2, 3, and a 1. Now, I look up in the sky, and I look, and here's a bigger star. And a 1, 2, 3. So I write it in my notes. 1, 2, 3. And the next night, I go out because I'm so excited. I was getting sleepy the night before. I had to leave. So I look, and I look up the next night to see the 1 and 1, 2, 3. Ah! Instead of a 1, 2, 3, it was a 1, 2, 1, 2 on either side of that bigger star. What's going on here? Stars can't move like that. It's not possible. I don't know what is going on here. I'm so confused. So I look at it all night and I write in my notes, now it's a 1 and 2, a 1 and 2. What could be happening here? So the next night I go out and I go to see. Ah! It's changed again. Now it's a 1, 2, 3, 1. Instead of the night before, it was a 1, 2, 1, 2, and the night before that it was 1, 1, 2, 3. I don't know what's going on here, folks. I'm so excited. I'm so confused, but so excited. I can't wait to go out the next night. And I look, nothing. It was cloudy. So I have to wait for 6 days. Cloudy, cloudy, cloudy. But then finally, the next night, I go out. Ah! 1, 1, 2, 3 again. Just like it was the first night. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going on. Because I'm so confused, because for 350, many hundreds of years, I say at 350, it goes back a longer before that. A man named Aristotle. He said everything go around the earth. Everything go around the earth. There was another man named Nicholas Copernicus who used math just like me. And he said everything go around the sun. But everybody say, you keep your mouth shut. You can't talk about that. If you do, you get put to death. And I say, well, if I can find something up there that goes around to something else, Nicholas is right and Aristotle is wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, seeing Jupiter and seeing things, that's what it is. Those aren't stars, those are moons. And they're going around another planet. What a wonderful discovery! I'm going to be the most famous person in all the world. I can't believe it. So I go to tell everybody, I go to tell the Pope. They say, keep on your mouth shut. I say, what? I just discovered something. Another night I go out and I look at something that looks just like somebody took a bite out of it, just like the moon. When the moon looks like it takes a bite out of it, it's called a Venus. And I realized through a long story short that those are phases. Other things are going around. Earth is not the center of the solar system. The sun is the center of the solar system. And I tell this to the Pope. And it's a long story short. He said, keep your mouth shut. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would have liked to tell you the finish of that story. But I would also like to come to your schools someday and tell you the whole story of what happened to Galileo Galilei. I'm hoping that I can give you a little tidbit of information to spark a little interest in you, that maybe you can go on a line, or maybe you can go to the library, and you say, oh, Galileo discovered that the Earth is not the center of the solar system. But what happened when he said something like that? Here was a man that was very, very smart. He did wonderful things of math. He invented the pendulum. He invented a thermometer. He invented a sector, which helped him fire the cannons accurately every single time. And then he perfected the spyglass till at nighttime, looking at the heavenly bodies, they call it the telescope. What a wonderful invention Galileo did. Well, Galileo was a famous man. He lived in a time called the Renaissance, just alike Leonardo da Vinci. Many things that took place at that time period. You're talking about 500 years ago. And now look at what you have today. You had the Dark Ages with the knights in the shining armor where people were stupid. That's why I call them the stupid ages, not the Dark Ages. Then you have the Age of Enlightenment, which is the Renaissance, which is Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo. Oh, you got Isaac Newton, you got Michelangelo. You have many wonderful people. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I believe you went through another stupid time. For many hundreds of years. Yes, you had inventions like a steamer train. But then in the 1900s, with the people like the Wright brothers and the Henry Fords, you come across with inventions that are wonderful things today. And you're becoming so much smarter. So much is happening that I can't even comprehend what you're doing. In fact, in your time period, remember I looked at the moon? I was told that you have even gone to the moon. So I would like to go forward in time and talk to somebody that might have been associated with the going to the moon. So, with that to be said, you study Galileo, you study Leonardo, you study the Dark Ages, and I'll be right back with your time period.
Boy, I'll tell you, that was something special. Did you know all those things about Galileo? You know, what I find very interesting is that he said he can get a telescope and look right up your nose. Can you imagine if someone could look right up your nose? That's unbelievable. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our spaceman, the spaceman shuttle, the shuttle spaceman that's coming up. And Paul Manning was, I guess they were going to build, or not that they're going to, they are building an observatory in his honor because he's a pretty amazing guy. And I see behind me we have something going on. Oh, he's combing his hair. He's combing his hair. He's getting ready. Oh, can you imagine? Yes. Oh, I think he's coming back. Oh, he's almost here. And they dedicated this wonderful observatory because the spaceman, and this is his dream, he wants to go up in space someday, and he will. He teaches lots of kids about the stars and the moon. He's pretty amazing, and he's back.
Well, it's great to be in your time period. It's wonderful to take you on a walk through history, a walk through some of the greatest time ever in the history of man. Yes, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, that was in our background way, way over in Europe. But then the Age of Enlightenment, the Renaissance, and I tell you, the truly great people, the people that made people think, to take something from nothing and create. Now, in your own time period, back when I was younger, someone saying, let's go to the moon, they would have said, you're nuts. Just like they said it with Leonardo, and just like they said with Galileo. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, anybody that says you're nuts because you're thinking forward, you're thinking outside the box, you're thinking outside the envelope, I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, you're in good company. Boys and girls, thinking outside the box is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Wow, I can see behind me a Saturn V. The Saturn V was one of the greatest machines of all time. See, in the early mid-1900s, you had a big war, and all the scientists were taken to use their smarts to build bad things, to build missiles, to build weapons. Well, there was a man named Robert Goddard who worked with rocketry. There were other men that worked with rocketry, Herman Oberth and others. But then a man named Werner von Braun took that idea of rocketry and said, you know, someday I would like to go to the moon. And they said, you're crazy. Well, they developed all kinds of weapons for war, but when the war was over, we still had a massive race, a race that would take us against the Russians. Today, we're not enemies with the Russians, but we were back then. And the race was who could go up into space, because that would be the final frontier. Who would be smart enough to go into space? Well, just as we were planning to do it, on October 4th, 1957, all of a sudden, this little ball with little spikes coming out of it started circling the Earth. And it was going beep, beep, beep. That's all it did. But it orbited the Earth. It was called Sputnik. The Russians had put the first free satellite up into space. Well, believe it or not, it was harmless. It only beeped. But what if they put a bomb inside? What if they put spies cameras in it? We needed to catch up. So we said, what would be greater than putting a satellite up? We decided, what if we put a human in space? So we started talking about putting a human in space. And while we were working on it, we didn't have a rocket at the time to do that. We had missiles. So we decided to put a little tin can, a little capsule on top of a missile and send a man up into space. And while we were doing it, all of a sudden we got a call, the Russians had done it. A human named Yuri Gagarin had gotten up into space. Well, that changed everything, folks. The race was now on. And President John F. Kennedy at the time said, what could we do that would end this race forever? And they said, the greatest goal of all time. Remember Galileo looking at the moon for the first time? We decided we would look and go for the moon. But again, we didn't have missiles long enough or strong enough or big enough to do it. So they did that. They played with capsules. You saw a close-up of a capsule with one astronaut inside. Then they made capsules with two astronauts called Gemini. They worked in tandem with another capsule and learned how to dance in space. It was a wonderful time, but it was all to get ready for the last great voyage, the greatest voyage of them all, and that would be in a craft known as the Saturn V rocket. This Saturn V rocket, ladies and gentlemen, was 363 feet tall. If you laid it down on end, it would go from goalpost to goalpost of a football field. and it weighed over 6 million pounds. And it was loaded with lots and lots of fuel. I won't get into the technical aspect, but call it gasoline. Lots of $6 million almost gallons of fuel, but 3 men went in it. And it was the most powerful machine man had ever created then and since. In fact, if any of you have ever been to NASCAR, there's about 40 cars that start a NASCAR race at 600 horsepower. Now, when this took off, there's a thing called thrust, the fire that pushes down to make the rocket go up. When it fired down, it was 7.5 million pounds of thrust, which was equal to 8,000 NASCAR starts. In fact, it was so powerful that when it took off from Florida, an earthquake was felt in Texas. Again, it was equal to 23 Hoover dams, generating enough electricity to power all the lights of New York City for an entire year. But it worked on the same principle of a hot air balloon. When it took off, it got faster and faster and faster until it got to 6,000 miles an hour. Then all of a sudden, just like a hot air balloon drops the sandbags, it dropped this bottom stage, would fire the second stage rockets, and all of a sudden, this would get up to 17,000 miles an hour and go around the Earth going 17,000 miles an hour, which is enough to do orbit, but we want to go to the moon. We get rid of the escape hatch, and we fire the second rocket and get rid of this, and this parachuted down, or actually disintegrated in the atmosphere, and we fire another motor, and this takes us off to the moon. 25,000 miles an hour. That is 10 times faster than a rifle bullet, folks. 10 times. A rifle bullet exits a rifle at 200,500 miles an hour. This is going 25,000. It gets us to the moon, and all of a sudden, they have to open up an alligator's lips, and they take this limb, and they dance around the moon. This goes down to the moon, and in 1969, to make a long story short, we made it to the moon. But it wasn't good enough to get to the moon. We had to bring a man back safely. And so the top part of this takes off, comes back up to the little shuttle. They head back to Earth. They get rid of the lunar module, and they come back with about 10 feet worth of capsule. Out of 363 feet, that's all they come back with. But we made it to the moon. Boys and girls, my name is Paul Manning. I do a lot of different characters. You've seen a snippet of each one. You've seen Sir Thomas Warwick, Leonardo, Galileo. I do Wilbur or Orville Wright. I do Mark Twain. I do Abraham Lincoln, and I'm honored to do a space shuttle pilot. This is an authentic space shuttle suit given by my friend Hank Hartsfield, which is the 3-time shuttle commander. Our time is running to a close, but I do come to all the schools. I come to all the areas. I'll go anywhere to teach kids how to educate themselves, to be enlightened, to use your mind, to use your brain. Dare to dream and reach for the stars. You can be anything you want to be if you set out to be that. I've had to race through all and take you through hopefully a fun walk through history. It's different doing things live, and my shows are really long, but I've had a wonderful, wonderful time and would really love. My website is www.spacemanning.net, and it's been a wonderful invitation to come here to the studio and talk to you. And if nothing else, mothers and fathers, let your children dream dreams. Let them think out the box. And sometimes when we don't say, you're nuts. We don't say, it's impossible. All we say today is, we just don't know how yet. But you're going on to Mars, you're going out in the other solar system. The world is yours. The solar system is yours. The galaxy is yours. Just use your brain, use your mind, and have a wonderful, wonderful future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been an exceptionally fun time for me. Totally different than anything I've ever done, going through all my characters. I hope you had a wonderful time, because I certainly did. I want to thank Sir Lance. I want to thank JoJo. I want to thank this wonderful studio. Thank you, everyone. It has been terrific. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. I wait.